So here we are again back in Psalm 23. We're following through the Psalm and just taking some thoughts each day, taking some time each day to meditate on the Lord and to spend time in His presence. As we read yesterday, it only takes a few moments in the presence of the Lord to restore our souls and for Him to guide us in the path of righteousness through His Word. And He does it because He loves us, but He does it for His own purpose. His purpose is that He would have a family, people who would worship Him. And so we come to Psalm 23 verse 4. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for You are with me. Your rod and staff, they comfort me. So here's a picture of the shepherd, David the shepherd, walking the hills of Israel and spending time in the ravines, the gullies, the steep gullies that are in the mountains there, and trying to find the right place, trying to find the things that his sheep need, the food and water that his sheep need, finding a quiet stream and finding green grass. And so as the shepherd leads the flock through the valleys, there are always predators who are hungry for a bit of a lamb meal, a sheep meal. David said that he fought the bear and he fought the lion before he fought Goliath. He had experience, and his experience as a shepherd was that there were foxes, there were wolves, there were lions, there were bears who would happily eat his sheep if he let them. And so he's always there guarding his sheep, watching them, and especially as you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, where there would have been birds of prey, eagles and vultures who would easily come and swoop down and take lambs and take sheep. The shepherd, had to be constantly on his guard. And so as the shepherd would lead the sheep through these valleys of danger, his weapons were that he would carry a rod and a staff. And so the rod that he carried was a pole, was a heavy wooden pole. That was his staff. And so a staff would be used to steady you, as people do when they go rambling, as they go walking. They take a stick to steady themselves on the rocky slopes when the ground's the ground can move beneath your feet, and so you carry a walking stick to help you stop you from falling. And so the shepherd moves around on these rocky slopes, and he needs a staff to steady himself, but he also carries he needs a rod to carry him to steady himself, but he also carries a staff. And so you've got the shepherd's crook, which was a piece of wood that was shaped and bent so that it had a curve on the end, so that you could slip that curve around the hind leg of a sheep and snare it. As you know, sheep are very skittish, and you don't get very close to them. They know the shepherd and they follow the shepherd because he's got a bond with the sheep. But to catch a wounded animal, to catch a frightened animal, you needed a long pole with a hook on it. And so often in the church you see these symbols of the shepherd's staff. So there were two things that the shepherd carried. He carried his wooden staff, his wooden walking stick, and he carried the shepherd's crook and the rod. And so with those two things, he could steady himself, he could tend to the animal, and at the same time he could use that stick to attack and to defend and ward off predators. So he was well armed, able to use that. And of course, David, was famous for his skill with the slingshot. So the shepherd had these things in his armoury, had these things to use as he went about the dangerous business of leading a flock through a dangerous place. And so God's picture for us, this picture for us, is that even though we go, sometimes we find ourselves in dangerous places, God is able. He has both a rod and a staff that are able to comfort us. And comfort is a bit of an interesting word. The comfort comes from the fact that he has a strong defense, and it's a strong. There is strength in God. He is able to defend us, and he is able to protect us, and that is our comfort. The comfort is this: that he carries a big stick. So he walks softly and carries a big stick. And with that big stick, he is able to protect and comfort us. So don't worry, God's leading us even though we seem to be going through the valley of darkness and death. God is strong, and God has the weapons to defend us and lead us, heal us and protect us. Amen.